Good afternoon, everybody. Just making sure that it's working. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, so just the fact that I wasn't out this weekend doing prep as per normal, I thought I'd do this, and if anyone else was sort of stuck inside, then they'd be able to pop over basically for a little bit of a fishy chat. So we've got one comment straight away. This one is, it's different than how we do our live, so I can't put it up on the screen. I'm not too sure if I can get it, if anyone can see it. Well, we've got one from Barry Smith saying, "Hi, Paul, all loud and clear, but hope you're keeping well, Baz. Say any questions that anyone's got, more than welcome to fire them over." What I'm doing at the moment is, again, like all over the winter time, just try and basically make the most of me free time, because the second sort of, I don't know, I'm going to say mid-March, but it's more April, to be honest, but it almost like April starts and then it's October, sort of end of October. So this time of the year, I know it feels like, it's a million mile away, but it soon creeps up on us. But for me, because I'm out obviously filming, coaching all of the time, I can never have too many hooks done, and say, rather than sitting here thinking, I wish I was fishing, just try and make the most of my time basically and get ahead so that when I am out, I've got plenty of stuff done and I can sort of enjoy my time a little bit more. But yeah, today, ones that we're doing is, if I turn it upside down for you, is a 12 QM1. I'm just tying up some bayonet. So again, I can show you our time if anyone's interested in that, or if anything else, say just pop it over, just move my bits out of the way so I don't put stuff everywhere. So we've had a couple more comments. So we got one from Trev. You're right, Trev. Hope you're keeping well. Where is my little rig bits? Are they down here? So I've got to show everyone this. So I think, yeah, we got on Trev. Trev is a massive fan of little shots. So I made a couple of like little tiny rigs up for Trev with a couple of 13 shot and sent them in the post. So these are the ones that Rich made me, sort of the original prototype ones. A lot of my floats sort of from in the past as such. When I wanted Rich to make me something, he'd make me something, I'd test it. And then once we was, not just me, but all of us were happy, Christian being one, Kieran being another, and obviously the man himself, Rich, when we was all sort of happy with it, then he'd release it on the RW Floats website. But I got him to make me these little flows for when I go to Monk Hall. And if I wander up and show you them, I say I wander up, move my hands basically so you can see them. But what this is like a little 2x13 float, and they literally just take two number 13 shots that you can see there. And they're brilliant when the eyes are dead shallow. And because I know Trev is a massive fan of little tiny shot, I thought, you know what, I'm going to surprise him for Christmas and make a couple of floats for him, just so that he's ready and prepped when it comes to sort of Western pools and he's back out fishing. He's got a couple of rigs, but I feel like I'm going to regret this now because I know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to send me them floats back in the post with the rig winder and say, Paul, just do a couple more rigs for me. But absolute pleasure. But say, hope you're keeping well, Trev. And then we've got one from Rodney. Happy New Year, Paul. Happy New Year, Rodney. Say, hope you're keeping well. So let me see if I can scroll down. Say this one is different than our Match Focus Live, like the setup. It's technology with me. So let's make sure. Yeah, I think it just does it itself. And then, so another one from Trev. Good cheers, mate. I'm trying to get them 12s on Still Laugh Out Loud. I absolutely love it. But yeah, they'll be mint, Trev, when you go out. Say with them eyed. What I found when I went to Monk Hall, it's the only place, to be honest, that I've been where I can remember where I've ever sort of fished for eyed, and they're ever such weird fish. And it wasn't just the eyed, it was when we was on buzzard as well. And say I've only fished there a few times, but it was on buzzard. Yeah, that was the match where it really hit home to me. So again, because I go there and like fish the festivals. We have actually got 2 more festivals which will be released soon, so I might as well mention them for those that are interested. So get my diary down, but yeah, they will be released on Fish Hub soon. But we've got one in, it's the 8th and 9th of July, and then another one the 15th, 16th, and 17th of September. So 2 festivals to look forward to this year going to Monkall. But yeah, when I was on Buzzard, you're fishing for carp there, and Joe's just popped back from the shop. Just give me a little wave. Sorry, it's all right, pig. But yeah, back onto Buzzard. So you're fishing for these little carp shallow across. So I've gone across on my little dibber rig. So it probably would be a number 2 RW dibber. And I'm getting bites every time I slap my rig over. And it just didn't feel quite right. And you know what I'm like preparation-wise. So I've got all my other rigs set up to be able to fish for the hide shallow, the F1 shallow. So it's my little freebie 8 Winter Maggie, and I had that set up on a longer line, which what I normally set up. And I thought I'm just gonna have a go. So put a pellet on, dropped it. Obviously I've got to take a couple of 13s off. So I think it was like a freebie 8 Winter Maggie, 1 number 13 shot, if I can remember right. And then I think the hook bait I used was a 6mm scratton, so a small one, because floats don't take no shot whatsoever. And I slapped it over, and it just went and was never coming back up. It wasn't that little dib that you normally get, you know, once you've had a bite and you missed it, where I don't know if they feel more resistance in the float. I don't know what it was. But from that day, I went over, slapped me freebie 8 Winter Maggie over, and I just caught one every single chuck. But the float is not made, obviously, for what I'm using it for. So I want to say it was about 8 or 10 minutes to go. And I'm playing a fish, and I've lost it in the net. But I've looked at my rig, and there was no rig left. It was just basically an eye on the line, give it a bit too much abuse. But basically, just the float evaporated. I went back out on my dibber rig, and I had a bite every single time I slapped my rig over. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I either caught one fish or I never actually caught another fish. And that would have been the September festival. And then I think I had 1 or 2 matches there. And that just got me little pea brain worried, because on a lot of the other lakes, you're catching hide and some F1 shallow. So I've always used the dibber down to, I want to say, about 14, 16 inch roughly depth wise. And then deeper than that, I could use my freebie 8 Winter Maggie. So I got Rich, I said, Rich, like, can we make some like Winter Maggies, but to fish between, say, 6 and 14 inch deep? Because that freebie 8 Winter Maggie, you just can't fish that shallow with it. The float's too long. And that's what these floats were made of. So you got a 2, I did prepare. So give me 1 second. Remember, I got bits and bobs kicking around everywhere. So in my little bags there, just so that I can, so you know what they're actually called. And you'll be able to get them from, obviously, the RW site. So these are the ones I think. So I've got some that are, again, like my prototypes that Rich made, you know, basically give me. And then I've got some that are marked up. So that one there is a freebie 12. And that's the bigger size of the 2. So you've got a freebie 12. And I don't even know if I've got one printed off. And a 2B 13 is what it's called. So those are the 2 floats. If I move my head out of the way, you might be able to see. So that freebie 12 compared to a 3B 8 Winter Maggie, if I get one of these out, then it'll all make a bit of sense. They all look quite big when they're next to each other. So I've got a freebie 12 and then a 2B 13. So you'll be able to see the difference. Let me do it there. So that one there is a freebie 8 Winter Maggie, the biggest one. And then the next one down is that freebie 12. And then this little one at the back here that I'm spinning, that's a 2x 13. But yeah, that was the float that I had originally. And that was like considered minute compared to all your other rigs. And these were the 2 that say that Rich made for us. It was the 2 freebie 12 and then this little one that's not printed is a 2B13. And those are the ones that when you're fishing shallower, so these two in my mind of what I'm going to be using them for, it's not so much for F1s, I don't think. When you're fishing I'll just get Joe to run to the door for us. When you're fishing for F1 shallow, I still feel like you can use a dibber, but it's more when you're fishing for eyed. And say like that one match, I've literally only had that one match on buzzard, but I honestly feel that these two will take over from your dibber style floats, because when you slap them in, they just go. It's just like overshotted, but a bite, it just melts away. You don't seem to get the rejection on the floats like you do when you're fishing with dibbers. And I'm sure maybe a few of you would have seen, but excuse me, on the Catch More Media channel, again, if you want to scroll back to it, I know the day before the practice match, young Brad Lucas drew peg 21 on extension, and I don't know if he won the match, but I know he caught a big weight, and he caught everything on a freebie 12, the one that I just showed you. And then the following day, Tom done a little bit of a clip of me. It would have been the Shimano Blakes. No, it wouldn't have been the Shimano Blakes Festival. That's April. It would have been the Drennan Winter Pole Champs. And you would have been able to see there that I've got a long line, even with my back shot, and you see like the little signs. But I feel like when you're fishing for eyed, those floats are just going to be unbelievable. So I don't do loads of it, but if you go anywhere and you're looking at catching eyed shallow at sort of your different depths, that 2B13, I'm going to say that's your float that you want really from like 6 to, I know it all gets a bit technical, but I feel like this is the way fishing's gone now. Long gone are the days where you set up 1 or 2 rigs and try and, what's the right word, compete, because most people aren't prepared. I feel like now it's gone this way because basically we've all got so good. So you really do want the right flow and rig setup for each depth to be able to maximize what you're going to be able to catch in your peg. So I feel like for me, that 2B13 is going to be like my 6-inch to sort of 10-inch deep, maybe 12-inch. That flow is literally just going to be made for that depth when you're fishing maggots, casters, shallow. Then your 3B12, again, if you was going to fish, say, 4 mil hard pellet shallow, then you could use that at that depth, but obviously take less shot. So your float has got the shot plus the hook bait. But if you was fishing with maggots and casters, I feel like that float is going to be that sort of 12 to 16, 18-inch depth, maybe even a little bit deeper. And then you're going to be able to use your 3B8 winter maggie for a little bit deeper than that. But I feel like for me, this, spring, summer, going into autumn time, I really do feel like those floats are going to be massive, especially if you're fishing for a lot of eyed. So definitely worth giving them a try. So where do we get to? So one from Trev, and then next one is from Steve. So on the last working it out, why did you not use the same shotting pattern on the 2 different floats? So the biggest reason, Steve, was I wanted to try and work out if I could use one rig to basically do it all. And with a carbon stem float, I've tried, I think everyone, this is where it's all personal preference. So I've tried in the past of fishing with that tapered, strung out shotting pattern, which I know, like you look at Steve Ringer, the perfect example, he loves fishing like that. Again, when you look at and watch a lot of Mikey's videos, again, he loves that sort of tapered shotting pattern. I like using the lightest float I possibly can. This is how I like fishing. And when I fish like that, I personally feel like using a carbon stem, it's only really when using a carbon stem float, I feel like my float's moving a lot more, whereas I can use the same float. So say a 4B12, 1.5 mil solid bristled maggots, that'd be the type of float I'll be using at the moment. So I could shot that with, say, a tapered strong bulk of number 10 shot. But I just feel like with a carbon stem float, not so much, I mean, if there's no wind then and ice and stuff, then your float isn't going to drift really. But in normal conditions where you've got a bit of wind, you've got a little bit of water movement, I tend to find that tapered strong bulk, I just feel like my float's moving all of the time. It's not sat still. Whereas I can use that same flow, but shot it with a bulk and 1 or 2 droppers. Now all of a sudden I feel like my float's just sat there. And I much prefer that type of shotting pattern. It just works really well for me. So when I'm fishing strung out, which you would see, I almost always fish. When I'm fishing shallow, I almost always fish strung out because I just feel like it works well. But when you're fishing shallow, your rig's it's never sat that still. You're always, either lifting it in, slapping it over, giving it a little tap, or just a little lift and a drop, or you miss a bite. You're forever laying your rig in, so your rig's always falling. So that's why I like fishing strung out. Also, why I always use shot, because once I put them where I want to, they're not going to move around in my net. So that's the downside with cubes. Obviously, they move up and down all of the time. So I much prefer shot for that reason. But because I'm moving my rig all of the time, it's never sat still long enough to actually be affected by anything. So again, when you're looking at the size of floats, a lot of the time I use for shallow, they're more often than not quite light. But when I'm fishing on the bottom, I know you've got this anchoring point a little bit, when you're body over depth, your hook's on the bottom plus your hook base. So you almost have got a bit of an anchoring point. But how I see it, again, it's all personal preference. What you try and you think, yep, I really like that, or do you know what, that isn't for me. You ask one person, and again, everyone that I speak about, the results back up. They get results doing what they're doing. So it backs up their thinking. And what's most important is they're confident and thinking, well, this makes a difference the way that I'm fishing. And that's what matters most. So how I like fishing, this is what I tried. Maybe I didn't cover it well enough on our video, but how I like fishing is with a bulk and 1 or 2 droppers, with a carbon stem float when I'm fishing with maggots, when I'm fishing with basically any bait really. The only time I ever fish that tapered strong bulk or strung out is when I'm fishing shallow or when I'm fishing with pellets. Now, another thing to think about is how you lay your rigging. So when I'm fishing, let's just pick a bait that's, again, this time of the year, so ground bait and live maggots, so tapping a few live maggots in or loose feeding a few live maggots. How I like to lay my rigging, and I think it's really important, is I've got options of how I lay my rigging. So if it's really difficult, then I want to flick my rigging on the side, keep my pole tip dead low, so I can do it with a float. And this is one of the biggest things, to be honest, that I learned off Andy. So you flick your rigging, imagine the water's here. I know it's difficult because we ain't got any water, but imagine where the float is, on its side is the water. So I lay my rigging, and as it's with my pole tip, this is what's important. So I've got my pole tip, say here, and my back shot here. Let's do it like that. So as I lay my rigging, the float's starting to cock. What I think is important is, if you notice where my pole tip is, a lot of people, they have their pole tip and their back shot here and let the float cock like that. What's important to get that really slow forward, it's difficult, is being able to flick your rigging, say it's all level, your pole tip is next to the water and your back shot is almost in a line. Now your back shot wants to sink, but your pole tip and you're holding it dead still, so your back shot is getting pulled tight by your float. So it's trying to sink, and then what will happen is your float will start to settle. So I might have to put it that way. So your float will start to settle, and then it gets to a point here where now the back shot is sinking the float. So what you need to do is slowly lift your pole tip up, and that will lift the float, and you keep holding it, and it takes forever. Even in like 4 foot, it can take forever for your float to eventually settle. If you've done the same thing, but your pole tip was higher, it just sinks a lot quicker, if that makes sense. And also your float's being sort of pulled out of the water a little bit because your back shot's out of the water. So again, it's that fighting with your back shot. So the reason, again, I like this bulk and a dropper is if I want it to sink really slow and I feel like fishing's difficult, I want to give the fish chance to be able to spot the bait. I lay my rig in that way, so I can create a real nice slow fall with a nice little light flow by doing that. So when you're fishing that tapered strung out shotting pattern, I feel like that's what it's all about, is trying to give the fish a lot of opportunity to be able to spot the bait, and then it's a resistance thing, you know. So once they pick it up, they only fill one shot at a time. So to get that full, I can do that with a bulk and a dropper, or bulk and 2 droppers, or I can slide my bulk up, use smaller droppers to be able to get that slow full if I think it's important. But if there's a lot of fish in my peg and I want to sort of bomb my rig down, then I can go out, drop my bulk in, or I can go out, feed my bait first, hold my float, drop my bulk in, literally let it free fall and just hold the float out of the water, and then just lower it down that last little bit. So it's getting past sort of the nuisance fish at times, but as it's getting just off the bottom, my rig's going to straighten out because your droppers are only going to sink at a certain rate. So as my bulk say, up here somewhere, then my droppers are going to come in and straighten up. So I'm still getting that slow fall where they can sort of see me bait, just hold it gently and then just lower it down. But then what I think is so important is once my rig is set, I don't want to move it. And all of the best anglers that I've watched over the time that I've been fishing, I know I've been very fortunate, the common denominator between them all, forget about what they're feeding, the technical element, forget about all of that. Just think about the rig's in the peg, and then what are they doing with their pole? They don't move it. The rig don't move. So watch William Bloodworm fish, puts the rig in the same every single time, but the float don't never twitch. You watch him and it's like he's locked in. It doesn't move. And sometimes you have to sit and wait quite a long time for a bite. And I believe the biggest thing that I've learned in all of my fishing is it's so important your rig doesn't move, that your rig doesn't drift. So again, you would have seen a few videos that we've done, like using a pole support. What that's about is, again, making sure that your float don't move. So this is why that bulk and a dropper, rather than that tapered strong bulk, is why I always go to that, because I believe that my rig sits stiller for longer using that. Now, why then have I got this tapered strong bulk when I'm fishing with micros and expanders? So again, the biggest thing is when they pick it up, they can only sort of feel one shot at a time. So yes, definitely more sensitive than just having a bulk and a dropper. But the biggest thing, why that is, for 2 reasons. One, when I first started doing it, that was how Andy shot his rig for pellets. He wins more than anyone, so I'm not going to argue with him. And I've tried fishing a bulk and a dropper, and it works, I think, up to about 4 foot. When you're deeper than that, then I feel like this tapered strong bulk is better. The reason being, again, with my, let's just say I'm fishing with maggots or my bulk and my dropper, more often than not, I'm going to have bulk shot. It could be made out of number 11s, number 10s, number 9s, number 8s. All depends on the size of the float. But my droppers are probably going to be number 11s or number 10s. They'll be my biggest droppers. Whereas when I'm fishing with pellets, with the tapered strong bulk, my lightest float that I've got is a 4x12 dink. So it's a wire stem float. Again, that's going to give me that bit more stability. But all my shot is going to be made out of number 9s for a 4x12 and a 4x14. So I've got bigger droppers. And then my 4x16s just made out of number 8s. Another big thing, though, is how I'm going to put my rig in. So I'm never going to flick it in and try and get a slow fall. I'm only ever going to tap my bait in and lower the float down. That's the only way I'm ever going to present my rig. So I think from that video, the biggest thing that I worked out was, when you're fishing with pellets, especially in that depth, I can't use the float that I want to use for everything else. I can't do it. Is it that it's a carbon stem? I don't know. Is it what I think it is the fact that the shots are bigger? So when you've got a number 9 dropper compared to, say, one number 10 dropper, the float, the indication is just easier to read, because rather than saying number 10, you get a little lift. It's minute. Even though the float bristles are the same, they're both a 1.5 mil solid, it's harder to read. That's why you always want to fish as crude as possible, because it's just easier basically to be able to spot the bites. And it was noticeable for me that day that using, I think we used a 4x14 Maggie and a 4x14 dink, again, both solid plastic bristles, 1.5s. The only difference really is slightly the body shape. A dink is a bit more, I have one to be able to show you. Or do I? That is the question. Yes, I do. I'm just picking up the wrong box. I'm picking up the hollow bristle. Picking up the wrong box. So, yeah. I have got a mishmash of everything. So that is not. That is. That's the solid. So that's the solid. 40-14. I can find one. Yeah. So the only difference basically between these two floats, so if I move my head out of the way, this one here that I'm going to show you now, forget about that one. That one is a dink. And then when I bring the Maggie in, you'll be able to see the body shape is slightly different and the stem is different. So they're both black, but one, this is flexi wire. So the dink is a flexi wire stem and the Maggie is a carbon stem flow. So when you look at them, basically the bristles are the same. Yeah, the body is slightly different on a dink and then the material is different. But apart from that, the biggest difference is a number 10 dropper compared to a number 9 dropper. And it was just so much easier for me to be able to read what was a buy when I was using what I would call a traditional soft pellet rig. So that tapered strong bulk of number 9 shot. But I'd never want to use that rig to fish with maggots because I can't flick it in and get that slow fall. So in my mind, that was why I wanted to go there and try it. And I honestly thought that was going to be, you know, really what I was looking at. The biggest thing that I felt like I learned was, one, how good I am getting and not feeding a lot. That was massive. The next biggest thing was the hook bait. And I know what I'm like regarding a bit OCD. We all know I'm bad for it. And in the garage, I can't tell you how many bags of expanders I bought. I'm a nightmare for it. So if I go into a shop, I always check the expanders and I look and think, oh, they look like a really nice 3mm, or they look like a nice 4mm, or they look, or even if they look like they've been made nice, I'll always buy a bag, because that was the biggest thing that I learned was the hook bait. So a 3mm, you're thinking, I'm not feeding a lot. A 3mm just looks perfect with a few micros, and you put your 3mm next to it and you just think, yeah, that looks bang on. It wasn't any good. A proper true 4mm, if you actually measured it, that was by far the best hook bait. Put a 5mm on, again, don't get a bite. Bread was unbelievable. So I felt like I learned so much from that regarding the hook bait and again the feeding. So I think it's all important, but when you break it, if I can come back to reality now out of my head and try and explain it the best way, is what you think is best is what you want to do. The most important thing is confidence. You try something and you think, yeah, that's good, I really like that. Or you try something and, you know, even if somebody else has mentioned it to you and you think, well, I'll give it a go. And it's like, no, that don't suit me. You've got to find what you like. And yeah, we experiment and try it, but ultimately, if something else is better, then stick to that better thing. That's the biggest bit of advice I'd give you, Steve. So hopefully that helped. So let me have a sip of me. Hide it from Joe. So this one's from Scott. Afternoon, bud. Hope you are keeping well and have a good year. So it's from Scott McGee. Our Scotland brother comes down and I see him at Tunnel. Absolutely love him to death. He's such a lovely lad. So all good here, Scott. Say, hope you're keeping well, and it won't be long before I'll be seeing you again at Tunnel. And then this one's from Trev. Are they 1.2 or 1.5 mil bristles? So these ones, Trev, as in my Maggies or the Winter Maggies. So the Winter Maggie is, I think, a 1.2 mil. I think they are anyway. So I can show you the difference again. If I put it there. So that's your Winter Maggie, that one. And then I'll bring in the Maggie. So there. So yeah, Maggie, I think, is a 1.5. So a solid bristle maggot is a 1.5. A solid bristle dink is again a 1.5. And then I think winter maggie is a 1.2 or 1 mil. But yeah, I think that's the difference in sizes, Trev. So moving further down, this one's from Richard. Hi, Paul. I'm the last working it out. What coloured flavour expanders have made a difference? So what coloured flavoured expanders have made a difference? So I never flavour any of my expanders. And it's just, I don't know. I spoke to Andy a lot about this, to be honest, with expanders. And again, it's not something that I've ever tried. But when I was first doing it, you know, learning the difference really for me with different coloured baits. So being a southerner, and I've only ever really fished with red maggots, to be honest. That was just always, you know, you fish dead red maggots in the edge. When you fish maggots shallow, you fish red maggots. When I fished a big float, I use red maggots. Very red. Now, from my mind, I can't ever think of a commercial venue before I met Andy where I would go and fish white maggots. I know when we used to fish the rivers a lot, we'd use bronze maggots and maybe an odd white and an odd red in it. But it was only ever really up until I started F1 fishing that I would ever use white maggots. It'd always be red or bronze maggots. And then when I started fishing for F1s more, and you know, because I'm always on the phone, I'm like, I don't understand this. This doesn't make no sense to me. Like, why red maggots in the wintertime and white maggots in the summer? Like, it makes no sense. Surely red maggots would be better because it's a darker silhouette. Like, if the fish are looking up, surely a red maggot has got to stand out better against the sunlight of the sky, because that's how the fish are into, you know, if they're rising for the bait, surely a red maggot's darker. Like, they've got to be able to see it. And he's, Paul, trust me, white maggots, that's just the bait in coloured water. That's what they want to eat. So just getting my head around that was really difficult. In the wintertime, I can understand red maggots, and I have tried it and I spoke about it. I remember, I never forget the match. It was on the backside of canal. I would say I would have been on peg 16 or 17. And I fished red maggots one way, white maggots the other way. Where I fished red maggots, I don't think I foul hooked a fish. It was just going into the winter time. And where I fed white maggots, I foul hooked more fish. It was the same depth. I'm basically fishing top six that way, top six that way. And I'll never forget that. So that was one occurrence. I want to talk about this colour thing. Then there was another one, again, just going before the teams of 4, and I spoke about it. I drew peg 30 on house, and it's epicenter. They live basically, well, peg 29's in and 31's in. They live in between them, opposite peg 6. In that gap, that's where the bulk of the fish always are. And I drew there just going in before the teams of 4 started. And at that time of the year, you've been using white maggots all of this time, and at some point I know, again from this match on canal, that at some point I'm going to have to change to red maggots. So I took a bit of both with me, and I made the mistake that day. I never forget it. Started short on maggots. It was a waste of time. Should have started on pellets. And again, I can touch on this in a little bit if you want, but I want to do the colour thing and then I'll go back to that. Otherwise I forget. I just get too excited and go down one road too long. So drawn the epicenter. I know I'm on the best peg within peg 6, but again, I'd probably still pick 30 over peg 6. I just think it's such a good peg. You've got depth close. You're right out in the lake. It's always such a good peg. So I started a maggot short, thinking, Paul, you donut is the word I'm going to use. Why don't you just start on pellets? Anyway, I thought, it doesn't matter. I'm loose feeding me red maggots long. As soon as I go out there, I'm just going to catch a load anyway. So the peg is going to carry me over the line, you know, even though I've made a mistake. Gone out long, fully expecting to flick my rig in and just get towed in like every single chuck, still mild. Flick my rig in, and it's sat there, and it's like the best way of describing it is like I ain't got a hook bait on. I'm just flicking my rig in with a hook. And I can't believe it. I'm getting no pimps, nothing. Thinking, this ain't right. I know I'm on the epicenter. Like I should be catching. And I want to say, I don't know, it's maybe, and obviously I've messed around off bottom, just fishing red maggots at this point. And then I thought, no, it's a bait thing. It's got to be. I know they're here. And I got up, got some white maggots, put them on my side tray. Within 3 minutes of flicking a few white maggots in, probably 10 or 12 twice, my float's out there, boom, getting an odd pimp, gone under, caught one, gone out, gone under, caught one, gone out. What I expected it to be like. It's like the fish have just all of a sudden now changed my bait and I'm fishing a totally different peg. Then now all of a sudden I'm fishing the real peg 30 on house, exactly what I expected. And then after probably, I don't know, can't remember that well, it might have been half hour, 40 minutes, all of a sudden, loose feeding my maggots and getting signs on my float, gone out deep shallow and just caught one every single chuck. So on the subject of this colour thing, that we know, well, in my mind, I know how big a difference it makes going into the winter time. Again, whites or reds, how good whites are in the summer, how much better reds are in the winter, more for like foul hooking. And I remember speaking to Andy about it, that if we're just fishing red maggots because they blend into the bottom, you foul look less, that just seems to be the best bait. Why are we using yellow expanders? That makes no, because he's always said to me, you want a golden colour expander. That's the bait you want. And I said, well, why aren't we dyeing our micropellets? Why are we not dyeing our expanders to be able to fish red? It makes sense. If that's so important with maggots, why are we not doing that with pellets? He said, honestly, Paul, I've been down this road before. It does not work. So from that point, you know, he's God, basically. When it comes to that style, everything that we do is based on what he's learned for himself, you know, trialing. And when he's doing it all of the time, especially somewhere like Partridge, at that point in match fishing world, it was just so popular. But they were so hard to catch because they get fish for every single basically day of the week on the covies. And he's been down that road and said it just doesn't work. And I'm not gonna, well, it's not like I don't believe him, if that makes sense. I know if it was that important, and the fact that he's tried it, he would have noticed the difference. And he just says it doesn't work like that. You want Scratton's micros, they're the only micros to feed. Again, like soaking them up. Most important thing is the size of your expander and the color, and you want it as golden as possible. Maybe because they're used to micropellets only ever being that color, and that's what they associate as food. I do not know. Maybe that's why in our latest working it out, why bread was so good, because when you look at micropellets, so again, try it, get some Scratton's micros, and they look sort of brown when you've soaked them up, and they do look a little bit paler once you have soaked them up. But when you chuck them in a bait box full of water, you know, a normal dark 3-pint bait box, just chuck a few in the water and actually look at them. They almost look more white than any other color. So I'd say with micropellets, that's the biggest thing that I feel like I've learned from our working it out, is the right size hook bait, and again, the right color. By all means, Richard, have a go at dyeing, you know, your expanders. But I think the biggest thing is, say, the size of them, but it's more that golden yellow color that you want, not like a dark color for some reason. And I think that's what it is. When you look at your micropellets, maybe that's why, you know, those hook baits work better. But I've never been into a flavoring. I just think, how I see it, I've been down this road before and tried, you know, flavoring wafters, flavoring meat. When I used to go to Gold all the time, you're chucking it out, fishing for a bite. I think the biggest thing is it's the colour more than the flavour that matters. I only think a flavour actually matters when you put something in your mouth. So again, like pineapple has always been a winter type carp bait. Is it the pineapple or is it the fact that it's yellow? If you had a brown boilie that was flavoured with pineapple, would it work? In my mind, I don't think. I honestly think it's the colour thing that makes the biggest difference. I think with a flavouring, it only actually works when you put it in your mouth. So until they've eaten it, and then hopefully your rig mechanics, like if the float's gone under, you strike, but more when you're ledgering, the rig mechanics then matter. Once they've sucked it in, and we all know that we get done all of the time, and that's why, again, from our videos, you'll see whenever I'm ledgering, the biggest thing that I always stress is hook bait's important, everything's important, but the only thing that actually matters really is how sharp your hook is. And that's why I'm a massive fan, rather than, and I don't want to I don't want to discredit people that believe it matters, because if it gives them confidence, that's the most important thing. But for me, I'd rather not buy that bottle of colouring and use cast out, basically don't cast out without a brand new hook, or a hook that I know is ridiculously sharp. In my mind, you will catch way more fish using a sharp hook every single time than whatever you put on it, because I've been down this road in the past, again, going to gold a lot, not just gold, sort of going to white acres. When you're not on the fish, you could chuck out a gold bar with a diamond ring on it. There's nothing there. You're not going to get a bite. I think the biggest thing is the visibility of the bait. And it's also, they know what it is. So why do you get a bite on a normal piece of punched meat, and yet you don't get a bite on an 8mm hard pellet? I think what it is, they know what meat is. They've eaten it before. They know what it tastes like, and they know it's good for them. Or they know that they can digest it. Again, with bread, you can chuck out a white boilie, don't get a bite. Yet you can chuck out like bomb and bread, and all of a sudden you do get a bite. So the colour's the same, but with a boilie, it's hard. Do they? I don't know. I'd love to know, I'll be honest. But do they look at it and think, I can't digest that? But you see 3 bits of swollen up bread, and it's like a drink almost. You know, they just drink it in. They can digest it easier. So yeah, biggest thing for me, I don't think flavour's as important. I think if you ask me what's more important, the flavour or the colour, in my mind, 1,000,000% is colour. And so for that reason, again, touching on like the punched meat and things, why do you get bites on pellets and you don't get bites on maggots? I think it's just because they want to eat pellets. Or why do you get better bites and catch more fish on meat at certain times of the year? I think what it is they know what they want to eat. Almost like us, we go into, say you're going out for something to eat, and I said to you, right, for most of us, or not maybe for most of us, say at this time of the year, it's freezing cold. If you give me a prawn salad, for argument's sake, with loads of dressing on it, and I'd look at that now and think, nah, I don't want that. Or if you give me something warm, a steak would be lovely. 1,000,000% I'm going to eat the steak. But if you give me that same option in the middle of July, and I've been out all day, you're hot, you're sticky, sweaty, you come home, you have a shower, right, I'm ready to eat, and you honestly give me them 2 options, I'd probably pick the salad first. Like, it's mad for me. I never thought I'd actually like that. But in the summertime, that's one of my favourite things to eat, because it's nice, it's cool, just replenishes you, just makes you feel good. And again, when you look at fish, certain times of the year, they definitely want to eat certain things. So I think, so, I mean, it is a minefield with fishing, because we're never going to know. We've only ever got our best guess. We're never going to know the real answer. I think one of the most important things in fishing is confidence. And that's why whenever I'm doing anything to do with sort of like rod and line fishing, I'll always say, is this over the top? I don't believe it is. I believe the one thing that really matters, that I know for most people that go fishing, if there was one bit of advice that I could give to anyone, would be that I know without doubt would catch them more fish by doing one thing, is change your hook regularly. If you do that, 1,000,000%, I know you're going to catch more fish. So yeah, I don't know if I went too far off on a tangent, but hopefully it gives you some sort of idea of how my little peanut head works. So let's see if yes, I can go up, so that's good. So 1 second, that was me jabbering on. So again, going back onto that, and then we carry on going down. Starting short on maggots, why did I not get any bites doing it? Was it the colour of the bait? I don't think it was. I think with natural baits, so like maggots, worms, casters, more often than not, they take a little bit of time to get going. They take priming. So on that day, if I'd have started short, feeding a few micro pellets to start with an expander on the hook, 1,000,000%, I know I would have caught more fish. Then if I'm starting to get funny signs on that, where the fish, you know, maybe micros are too attractive, I could just start tapping a few 4 mils in. I know if I'd have started doing that, then I would have caught more fish. Now, I could have flavoured my maggots. I know it's difficult, but I could have flavoured them with pellets or pellet something. It's still not going to be the same because they want to eat pellets early. For some reason, you just get a better response feeding pellets than you do feeding maggots. But pellets tend to be a bit of a dunk, 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 and then all of a sudden it's like, nah, it's Weetabix, so I don't want to eat it anymore. I want to go out for the steak. So they tend to stay better longer on natural baits. Again, a lot of it is only you can try something and just gauge the response that you get. And sometimes it don't make sense, but if that's what they want to eat, then that's what they want to eat. So hopefully, Richard, I've helped. I might have just probably just confused you even more, and honestly, I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, pellets are pellets, meat's meat, maggots are maggots, worms, worms, casters are casters. If that's what they want to eat, the last thing that I want to do, if you brought out, I'm going to say it because I'm dribbling thinking about it. If you brought me out a ribeye steak and then flavoured it with strawberries, I would be absolutely fuming. I love strawberries, but I don't want to eat them together. I don't want to eat my steak because I know that's what it is that I want. I eat it and immediately I feel good. More so the following day, I just feel like I've got more energy. We all know what it's like. A nice takeaway is lovely. It is. It just spoils you. Really, really rich. The following day, because you haven't got that goodness inside of you. And I think that's the biggest thing with fish, say more than us, is they know what they want to eat, and for whatever it be, for whatever reasons, that's what they're picking. If they can pick everything, again, more so on commercial fisheries where they get spoiled for choice, they're getting fed all of the time, they can tend to be a little bit more picky. So that's why I don't bother go down the flavouring route. It's more, what do they want to eat? Do they want to eat pellets? Do they want to eat maggots? And that's where I think it's difficult for us, because we might be more confident feeding pellets, but they want to eat more maggots and casters. How it works for me, I'm more confident with natural baits, but they don't really want to eat that. They like eating meat and pellets, the things that you're not so confident in. And I think that's the bit where we're all suckered into it. We've got things that we like doing, but it's when they want to eat this is when we tend to struggle. When they want to eat what we want to feed, we more often than not, we tend to do a little bit better. It's that change bit. But I think that's why, if you can just focus on what do they want to eat and try and be able to do that the way that you need to be able to do it, rather than being conflicted all of the time as into, well, I like fishing like this, so that's what I'm going to do. I think if we all had, and myself included, if we all had a little bit more of an open mind of like, I know at this time of the year pellets can work, meat can work, maggots, casters can work, so I'm just going to feel my way into it and feel like, well, what am I getting a better response on? And then for a couple of weeks, you'll probably have that little bit where they're on it. And then when you go in and you're like, it don't feel quite right, I feel like I need to change my bait. I think if we all done that, we'd probably all catch a few more as well. Just love fishing. It's just never ending for us, is it? So that one's from Richard. So this one's from Trev, 1.2 mil solid. They're called shallow slims on the RW Float site. Lots of freebie 12s available. They could well be. I've just known them, Trev, as a winter Maggie. So again, you know what I'm like with technology. I've never ordered like floats offline. I just say to Rich, or Di now, could I get some of these? And yeah, that's what they send me. They should correct me. Sorry, Paul, it's not called a freebie 12 winter Maggie. It's actually called a shallow slim. But I'll tell you what, Trev, after this, I'll actually have a look and then I'll message you. But yeah, there should only be one, if it's a freebie 12 or that 2B13. If it's under the banner of shallow slim, then that's what it is. But in my mind, I've always thought of it as a winter Maggie. So, but yeah, definitely well worth mentioning. So where are we now? So this one's from Ryan. Hey up, Paul. Hope you and Joe are well. Yes, all good here, Ryan. Hope you and PJ are keeping well. Had a lovely Christmas. So this one is from Graham, I think, the fishing stream. So he's put, hi, Paul. Hi, everyone. Hi, Graham. Hope you're keeping well. Had a lovely Christmas and New Year. This one is from John Ashwell. Hi, Paul. Have you noticed any difference between solid bulk and strong bulk on the overshotted rigs? I'll be honest, John. with that, I'm still not none the wiser. I was starting to get to do it a little bit more, and then it just all sort of almost getting into it, and then it just changed a little bit. So I fished at Red Hill, and that was where Callum showed me his rigs. He's unbelievable at it. And this is what I want to touch on as well. And I think we're sort of summing it up a little bit. So you speak to somebody like Callum, that he's very, very good at it. You know, he's done it a lot, and you can tell he's done it a lot, and he's practiced and perfected it, because in his mind, a bit like what we was talking about with my 4x12 bulk and a dropper and my 4x12 wire stem flow taper strong bulk for micros and expanders. That's what I'm confident in. That's what I'm going to do. When I spoke to Callum afterwards, he was like, well, that's the only way to do it for these reasons, X, Y, and Z. It's always tight. And I can 100% understand what he's saying to me. So that's how he likes doing it. When you speak to Andy and Chris, obviously they've done some underwater stuff as well. They just like little blocks of shot. So 3 or 4 number 10s, another 5, 6 inch, depending on the depth, another bulk, another bulk, another bulk. That's how they like to fish it. And then Dan Bennett, who I've spent a little bit of time with now, fishing with Shimano, how he likes doing it, he has like a little bulk, a number 9s, one number 10, like an inch below it, and then the hook length. And that's just how he does it. What is common, and this is what I think is really important, and what I honestly, hand on heart, feel like I've learned, is when you sit and watch Callum fish, it's like, what's the best way of me explaining it? It's the technique is the bit that what I want to touch on. So you watch Callum do it, and it changed the way that he's flicking it. So he might flick it quite soft, and then he might flick it again at Red Hill. This is what I feel was important from what Callum was telling me. How I caught a few was you need to flick up, hold it for a split second, and then slowly lower it down. And then flick up, hold it for a split second, and slowly lower it down. It's the flick technique. So you watch Callum do it, and whatever's the best way of doing it on the day, he's got all the different techniques. A bit like a gentle slap with a short line, being able to control your pole and slap your rig so it's always landing without bouncing. Then when you do it, that same sideways flick to the left with that much line, it's a different flick. You have to go further this way to be able to slap it in front of you without moving your float, and then lift up to your back shot. When you've got a longer line, you have to go even further to the right. So it's the same technique, but where you do it and the pressure you put on it and how quick you lift your pole up, it's all different. So that one is one way. That's one technique, depending on the different lengths of line. Then when you do it this way, it's the same technique, reversed, but it's a lot harder. Most right-handed people, I think, find it, it doesn't matter what hands you fish with. Most people, when they slap their rig right to left or left to right, they will have one side that they do it better than the other side, without doubt, because that's your preferred way of doing it. It's a lot easier. Doing it the other way, it's the same technique, it's just different. It's backwards, basically, which is a lot harder. So you've got different techniques regarding length of line and whether you slap to the left, whether you slap to the right. Then you've got forward slapping. That's even harder still. That's a totally different movement. Again, depending on the float you're using, the length of line, your hook bait, how deep you're fishing, it's all different techniques. The overshotting is exactly the same regarding, there's loads of different techniques regarding flicking. So I know what you're saying is the difference between the solid bulk and the strong bulk. I believe from what I've seen, the most important thing is understanding the correct way on the day to be able to flick your rig, whether you flick it up hard, whether you flick it quite quickly, how deep you lower your pole tip, depending on the depth you're fishing. That is the most important part. So when I spoke about these anglers like Brad Lucas, you can put him there, Rob Swan, Jordan Holloway, there's loads of them that are brilliant at it. But what they're very, very good at is this flick. And whatever the right way of flicking it is, they continue to do it. So that's the biggest thing that I genuinely feel like I've learned. You watch Callum do it, whatever the best way of flicking is, he works it out faster, and then he does it the same every single time until something's changed, and then he'll change the way that he flicks it. When you watch Andy, again, if you watch that live match that he filmed for us, which was brilliant, and I've watched that, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 times, how he flicks it, and then watching when he gets a bite, when he filmed the live match for us at Lindholm, that was unbelievable. Again, changing the way that he's flicking it, and you're looking, and that's the biggest thing. I've been fortunate to be able to sit and watch Chris do it. Again, unbelievably talented, and it's understanding that how far under the water do you lower it? When you flick it, does your pole tip come out of the water, or does it stay next to the water? How quickly you do it, that's another big thing that matters. I honestly think that's the biggest thing. When you watch them all, I was always riggy, thinking it's got to be a rig of I can do it. So I'm thinking, well, if I can make my rig just slowly sink itself, no matter how I flick it, it's the hook bait that's falling the same every single time, even if my flick's not the best. I think it's the flick that is the difference between the very, very best doing it and everyone else doing it. That's my honest opinion, John. So you could try each one and think, yeah, a strung out rig's better, or a deep, a bulk rig's better. Callum catches a load on it. He's adamant that strung out rig is best. When you watch Andy and Chris do it, they catch a load, they fish with bulks. I'm pretty sure that again, I'm just guessing, but I'm pretty sure Key, Chris, Rob, Brad, because they all do it a lot together, they probably all come to the same sort of conclusion regarding a rig and what they're happy with. But the biggest thing that I feel that I've learned is I was too worried about the rig side of it. It's the flick that makes the biggest difference. That's what I feel like I've learned from watching them, and sort of the conclusion that I've come to, John. So study that. That's the biggest thing that I would say. Study how they flick, and that's the bit that you want to be trying, is how often do you do it? How deep do you lower your pole tip? Do you flick it up and lower it down quickly? Do you flick it up, hold it, and then lower it down? I think that is the bit that we all need to get really good at. It's the flick that matters, I think, more than the rig. Whether you fish Chris's, Andy's, that style rig, little blocks shot, or whether you fish with Callum's completely strung out. I don't feel like it's the rig thing that, Callum could change now and just fish like little blocks of shot. I don't feel like he's going to catch any less. It's the flick that matters. So that's the conclusion that I've come to, John. So hopefully that helps. So going a bit further down, a little sip of my juice. So this one's from Steve. Have you got snow where you are? Lots or a little? So not yesterday, the day before, we had quite a lot come down. And then yesterday I actually drove to Tunnel, because where we live now, got to go all through like the country roads. Anyone that knows this area, but it's basically like one big long country road from Hereford to Worcester, and then you get on the motorway there. I think it's the M5. I might be wrong. And then eventually you get on the M40 and go in through Hockley Heath that way. So driving there, it was just slush everywhere. Again, where I live, it was all slush everywhere. And then when I got to Hockley Heath, it was quite bad, to be honest, the slush side of it. When I got to Tunnel, bless her, Sarah, and the team there, they tried to do everything to be able to get us ready. And you can see they've done the best with the roads, cleaning off all the platforms. But it was just so dangerous, to be honest. It wasn't so bad yesterday because everything was wet. It was forecast sort of like -1, -2 overnight. And I'm so glad this morning when I woke up, because everything is frozen and out the front is literally just like an ice rink. So as the day's progressing, the last time, literally just before we went live, popped out, and it's not as bad, but this morning it would have literally been an ice rink. So hopefully it's all gone by today or tomorrow, and then we can get back to some sort of more normality, get back out fishing. So, but yeah, it was bad, but hopefully now it's going. So where are we now? This one's from Barry. Paul, last week I won a match with 48 pounds of F1s using a 3B8 Winter Maggie and 42-inch water. Was this the correct flow, or would you have used a 4B8 Winter Maggie? So 42-inch, so 42-inch, 36, 3 foot, 3.5 foot. yeah, I feel like I'd have used the 4B8 Winter Maggie. So again, is it Barry? Yeah, Barry. It's not an awful lot of difference in shot. So the only difference really between a 3B8 Winter Maggie and a 4B8 Winter Maggie, if I've got one, is one number 13 shot. But the biggest thing, again, that's why like all your different floats, shotting wise, yeah, it definitely does matter. So is that 3B8? Got the wrong one there. It's the problem when you've got bits and bobs everywhere. So yeah, the shotting definitely does make a difference. But the biggest thing as well is the different depth of water is the total length of the flow, which I think often gets overlooked. So if I put them over there, that one, the shortest one is a 3B8 Winter Maggie, but the other one is just slightly longer regarding the bristle is ever so slightly longer, if I can offer them up without shaking. So the bristle is ever so slightly longer, but the other thing there, can you see the stem? It doesn't look a lot, but again, when you're starting to go that little bit deeper, it just sits better. It takes that little bit longer. It's just a bit more stable. With your float being that little bit longer, it just tends to work a little bit better. But the fact that of what you've caught doing it, you know, you still caught plenty of fish doing it. But I just feel like when you're starting to go that little bit deeper, personally, I would have opted for a 4B8 Winter Maggie or even a 4B10. But that's why you see with like my rigs, I've got loads of different ones set up, because if when you was fishing there was absolutely not a breath of wind, no water movement, your 3B8 would work absolutely fine. But it's when you start getting that little bit of water movement, a little bit of wind, where you can notice like your smaller floats, they will just start to drift a little bit. It's just not in proportion basically to the depth that you're fishing. Again, if you, I don't know, it was a live match, so it wouldn't have been that long ago, because it would have been the teams of 4. And I drew peg 2 on extension. And that day, I tried using a 3B8 Winter Maggie. I wouldn't have even been fishing as deep as what you was, Barry. It would have been about 2.5 foot, roughly 2.5 to 3 foot slot, 30 inch to 36 inch. And a 3B8 Winter Maggie, I get an odd sign on it, just missed an odd bite. I never really caught much doing it. And I set up a dobbin float, so a 4B10 Winter Maggie. And I actually butchered that rig down. And the difference between a 4B10 Winter Maggie and a 3B8 Winter Maggie was night and day. Like, it was unbelievable the difference it made. And you think in our head as well, and this is something that I definitely fall foul of, because I know more often than not, a lighter float definitely makes a difference. But it will get to that point where the float you're using is too light for the conditions you're faced with and the depth you're fishing. And actually using a heavier float, you just catch more fish. And so have a watch of that. You might have already done it, Barry. But that was a big, big lesson for me, where it's like sometimes I'm definitely more guilty than most of using a too light a float when I should be trying to be a little bit more crude and picking a heavier float. And that day, if I'd have not had that 4B10 Winter Maggie set up, and again, with the long line rigs, I'd caught so many in the past doing it. I'm so confident doing it. And again, late on when I changed to my short line rigs, difference was night and day. So heavier float, 1,000,000% made a difference. Likewise, having my short line rigs, they made a massive difference. So I definitely feel like I learned a lot about that moving forward ready. Hopefully when we're coming out, Barry. So yeah, definitely have a try. You know, the fact that you know what depth you've caught, you know what rig worked well last time. I know it does get a little bit more involved regarding you do need a few more top kits, but the way I see it is an investment. It's not like I'm buying them and they're never going to be worth anything. So when I upgrade my pole, or you know, and I want to sell them, then you're always going to get some money back for them. But it's just having those different options. So yeah, a few more, you know, you only need a couple more top kits, but it doesn't have to make a big difference when you've got that option of being able to change. So that's what I would say, Barry. But well done. So really, really pleased. So this one's from Steve. What would you do to get your mojo back for fishing, as I've had a terrible year and having a 3-month break, or I'd probably jack it in? To be honest, Steve, it happens to all of us. So again, if you'd have followed me match focus, trying to think of when it was. It probably would have been maybe 2 years since, 2 years. But basically, I crashed big time. So I was at Westwood in November. That's where it happened to me. And it's maybe different for me, but I'll try and explain it the best I can. But I've always been chasing, like, I want to do this, I want to do that. When you're sponsored, and again, with my Match Focus, that's a big thing as well. Forget about the sponsorships. Match Focus is important. So I want to be doing things and feeling like, I'm competing in this, what I can learn, helping everyone. And again, I just absolutely love fishing, obsessed with it, but it can get too much. And what I found at that point is I knew I shouldn't have gone. I said to Joe, again, in my life's busy in and around fishing, but everyone's life's busy in and around work and family, especially got young ones as well. You're here, there, and everywhere, and you just burn out. You're just doing too much. And I knew for me what happened, and I'll explain here. I was just doing too much work fishing, because it's all just into one now. It's not like, well, I go fishing and that's for me, and then I go to work and that is fishing, but it's work. It's just all in one big pot now. I go fishing, it's sort of for me, but it's sort of for work, because we're filming. And again, if I'm coaching, that's work. If I'm out filming, fish sponsors, that's work. But it's all just in one sort of big lump for me. It's not separate. Whereas when I was decorating, it was easy, because when I'm decorating, I'm going to work. When I'm fishing, I'm going for me. That's what I want to do away from work. And then I've got my home time, so my time with Joe. But I knew I was just spending too much time doing everything and not enough time at home. And I went there, and I knew I shouldn't have gone. And I went and practiced. And I don't want this to sound horrible, but we all need our own time at times, basically. And me more so than a lot of people, because I need to work stuff out. And just having time of practicing, especially when you're really busy or you've got something. So for me at Westwood, Skylark I struggle with it. I've had okay results, but when you go in somewhere and just thinking, do you know what? If I do well today, it's probably going to be more luck than anything. I'm not going on that lake thinking, do you know what? If I draw well today, I'm going to be tough to beat. Whereas on Swallow, I always felt, if I draw right here, I'm going to be a tough, and especially at that festival level, you've got to feel like that, because if you don't feel like that, you're never going to compete, So I always want to feel that if I get given a chance, that I draw well, I've got to fish well, I've got to make all the right decisions as well as that to do well. But given a chance, I feel like I'm going to do well. Skylark for me was never that venue where I was going there thinking, do you know what, if I draw well today, I'm going to be really difficult to beat. And I went up and tried to practice, and I couldn't. And it's the same at Whiteacres. And yes, it is part and parcel of what I do for a living, and I love helping people, but you can't advertise that, do you know what, lads, today I just need like an hour by myself. I'm trying to figure some stuff out, a bit of time by yourself, especially when you're busy and you're here, there, and everywhere, and you're only ever thinking about everything else. You're never really thinking about just settle down, just like, we all know what it's like, just an hour or two by yourself, sort of rejuggle all the stuff that's going on in your head, and then it's like, right, do you know what, I'm ready to go again now. I can't advertise that. So when I'm there, and I love it that everyone wants to talk to you and I want to help out, but at that point, I just need a little bit of time to myself, and I didn't get it when I was practicing. And so I'm tired. You've got too much stuff going through my mind. What I struggle with as well is that competitive. Like, I want to be competitive. It's my life. Like, I'm not going. I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but I'm not going there to make the numbers up. I want to win, and I prepare well. I want to. If I feel like I need to practice, I want to just have a few hours. But anyway, I didn't get that, so still not in the best frame of mind. Hadn't seen Joe a lot. I sort of come home, see her for one night, repack, and then I'm gone again, which is the part probably of what I do that not a lot of people see. And so I was struggling with it, just not having enough time at home. And then the first day I went there, and I was on Swallow, had some food. That was a bit of a nightmare. I went to Swallow, people behind me, couldn't concentrate, it was just too much. And then on the next day, I was on Skylark. I did draw the worst peg for it, peg 42, you got bench behind you, and it was like, no, I can't do this. And I've never, from what I can remember, I've never packed up like during a match or on a festival. But I shouldn't have gone. It was my own fault for not going. And looking back now, and the reason why I want to touch on this, it was the thing that I had to do. I needed to do it. And the second, I think it was like, I didn't do it like mid match, but I think I got to half hour before the end and I could not do it anymore. I had to stop. So I just started packing my stuff up slowly. I didn't make crash bang wallop. Everyone was still fishing. I just wasn't fishing. I sat down, putting my stuff away, you know, trying to be as conservative as I could for the other anglers. I didn't want to ruin their chance of catching some in the edge. I didn't get up, chuck all my fish back. At the end of the match, Andy was just a little bit further over. Like, he's come down and he's like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "No." And he was basically just giving me a cuddle and said, "Look, just go home, mate. We all need a bit of a break from it." The second I packed up and went and got my clothes, immediately I felt so much better. Like a weight had been lifted. I'm driving back home happy, which is weird for me. Normally, after fishing, I just want more. But it just got too much. And I come back and it's just, you need balance, basically. Another big thing regarding this is you need to be doing what you want to do. So again, no matter what level you fish at, I almost feel like, no one says it, but there's expectations. So one of the biggest things I get expected to do, and it's more from people that I love to death. So like William, Andy, again, like Sam Slockett, Matty Dawes, Chris, they all think I'm mad because I don't go and enter every single qualifier. And I've had my little spells of trying to do it, but it's not for me. I don't enjoy it. I'm away from home. And yeah, if I'm away from home doing something I want to do, then that's a good thing. You know, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm dead excited. Like, I know what it was like when I used to go to Whiteacres and I could not go to sleep. I'm sat there like, "Come on, Paul, you got to go to sleep. It's 12 o'clock. Come on, Paul, you got to go to sleep. It's 1 o'clock. Come on, Paul, I just don't sleep." So I just get up and have a toodle pip down there. Like, I'm so excited about doing it. So when I'm doing that, being away from home, it's not a thing of like, am I choosing between being at home or being away from home? Like, I really want to do that. Joe's always been mega supportive of anything that I want to do. But when I'm doing it and it's not what I want to do, I'm doing it for expectation and I'm doing something, hand on heart, do I want to do this? You know, given the choice, yes or no, I'd pick no. What I've learned to start doing is when I do something now and think, I don't like that, I just do no. And I don't worry about so much what other people think or say. It's not that I don't care. Of course you care, because a lot of the people, they all they want is they just want you to do well and sort of almost maybe live up to your expectation. They feel like I could compete if I got into regular big finals and maybe I'd have a chance of winning them. But do I really want that? No. So I think the biggest thing from basically crashing is what I'm trying to get at is I look at doing what I want to do. So I'll give you a perfect example. I didn't do loads last year, but the two things that I enjoyed off the top of my head last year the most was, one, the Red Hill Festival. There weren't many people there, but I loved it. It's just mint. Just the fishing's mega, the people are mega. That was the one that I'd say that I enjoyed the most. But my best weekend last year, I enjoyed the May Festival at Tunnel. I always enjoy that one because it's done on Way. Mikey was there as well. Love him to death. Spend a bit of time with Mikey. I really enjoyed that. But Pete was there. So that was really good for the people and the fishing because there was less pressure on that one. So it's just done on weight. So you go there, you draw your peg and try and catch what you can. It's not like, right, well, I'm on the third best peg in this section. I've got to try and win my section, try and win it. It's just more relaxed, enjoyable. You go there, catch what your peg's worth, and hopefully you draw well enough regarding the pegs that gives you the chance to be able to win. If you do, great, you've got a chance of winning. If not, it doesn't really matter. But you still feel like you're in it going into the last day. So that was enjoyable. But the most I enjoyed last year, so I went to Tunnel and stayed up. So I got my accommodation cost and my fuel cost to go from Reading to Tunnel. Then I've got my bait cost, and I fished a 14 peg match at Monkall, and what would it have been the second day? 10 peg, I think, because you're limited to 10 on out. So yeah, on the Saturday I fished on Swallow, and there was 14. I'm sure there was 14 of us because it was 2 pegs, missed a peg. I've never had that Monk Hall. Basically, I drove from Reading, stayed at Tunnel, went to Monk Hall on the Saturday for a 14 peg match, went back. So it's an hour and 20 minutes or hour and a half roughly from Tunnel to Monk Hall, back to Tunnel again. Went from Tunnel back to Monk Hall, and then on the way home for a 14 peg match and a 10 peg match. I absolutely loved it. So I'm going to say, yeah, Red Hill, the May Festival, because they were festivals, I enjoyed them a little bit more because you've got that sort of prize at the end of it. But weekend-wise, or when I look back now, what was my favourite one? It was just a normal weekend. That was it. And I'm fishing a 14 peg match and a 10 peg match. And it's going to cost me more in fuel than what I can ever win. But it's just going and doing the fishing that I want to do, the fishing that I enjoy doing, at the venue that I like being at, surrounded by the people I like being surrounded by. And that is what I would say. If you're struggling with your mojo, I think what it is your brain telling you ain't enjoying doing what you're doing. And that's what happens with Jo. What, you know, and she looks at me, if I'm starting to feel a bit run down, she's like, you need to stop. Your body's telling you need a break. If you don't stop, you're going to get a forced break where you're just not going to be, well, basically. So that is your body's basically way of telling you what you are doing at the moment you're not excited about. So you need to, whatever it is. So where did we get to? Just making sure. So yeah, Steve. So it's making sure, Steve, you're doing what it is you want to do. Forget about whether, there's a title attached to it, whether, there's 8 people or 30 people. Who cares? Like, the whole point of fishing is doing something you enjoy doing. And if you do something for long enough for the wrong reasons, you're going to stop doing it. There's obviously a reason why you love fishing. What it is, the reason you've lost your mojo is basically just you're not doing what it is that you want to do. So that is what I would suggest to you. Sit down and think, or watch some, stuff on YouTube, like local venues that look good. Even if it means you go less, but travel to where you want to fish. So again, I love going to Monk Hall, where I was in Reading. It's 3.5 hours away. I can't just go there and back in a day. It's just not possible. So I know it. That's what I want to do, and that's where I love going. Again, I love going to Red Hill because the fishing's mint. It's stunning being there. The fish are immaculate and they're massive as well, and the people are lovely. Like, there is nothing that I do not enjoy about any of it apart from the drive. But because I can't do it all at the time, it's just a case of like, right, I'm going to put that there. I'm really, really looking forward to that, and that's what I would basically suggest you do. Have a think. What is it I love doing? What is it I don't like doing? And sometimes having like a little bit of a challenge, maybe, like stepping outside of your comfort zone a little bit. You might be getting a little bit bored with the style of fishing you're doing. So you might look and think, like, I'll give you a perfect example for me. Like, I don't get to do as much run line fishing as I'd like to do. So this summer, I'm definitely going to go and start doing a few more matches where you can catch on a pellet waggler. And I'm just going to go and fish some open matches. Again, I don't care if there's me and someone else, me by myself, or there's 400 people there. I don't care. I'm not going there to do that. I'm going there because it's a style of fishing I really enjoy doing, and I'm going to be wetting my knickers over it. Can't wait to do it. So that's what I'm going to do. And if that means I'm going to go and fish an open match and there's not many people there, but there's other matches where, yeah, there's potentially more prizes to be won, I'm going to pick what I want to do, and then maybe, I might do other bits of bobs as well. But I think that's the biggest thing that I say, Steve, is just get back to whatever it is you like doing and just do more of it. And all of a sudden you'll be like, I just can't. It's that sleeping thing for me. That's when I know deep down, if I can't stop thinking about it and I'm struggling to sleep, like even now when it's my job, like if all of a sudden tomorrow was mid-July, not even mid-July, but say May time, and I could go to Monk Hall, I know I'd just be so excited. I couldn't wait to be able to get there. And I think if you're like that, you're doing the right thing. So that's what I would suggest. So where do we get to? So, I've highlighted stuff. So this one's from Steve. Jo, come and say hello, please. The door just shut. She's a bit shy. She's not shy, but So where did we get to? So we do a couple more, and then I'll let you enjoy, say, the rest of your Saturday afternoon. So this one's from Anthony. Hi, Paul. Congratulations on your sponsorship, and thanks so much for the great coaching session. Great day. You are more than welcome, Anthony, and thank you ever so much. So got a couple of spammers, and then underneath the spammer, we've got a bigger spammer. Matthew Dawes Fishing. Have I won the giveaway? I'm surprised it didn't say pow. Have you won? Matty was really, really nice, and I mentioned this before. So the last time he won, I was really, really looking forward to it. He ended up giving it away. So what could I give you, Matthew? Have I got anything down here? I'll tell you what I could do is just give him a hook, any hook, because he ain't got many tied, have you, Matthew? That's what I'll do. I'll tie you a couple of hooks, Matt, and then you can win them. So this one's from Daz. Afternoon, Paul. Afternoon, Daz. Hope you're keeping well. Our next one's from Richard. Hi, Paul. Could you talk a bit about how you use ground bait during the winter matches? So for tunnel, I've got some down here. If I can grab it. So ground bait for me, again, what we was talking about bait a little bit before. I think a lot of everything is to do with confidence, and I'm quite simple. I like trying to keep it as simple as possible, because if you've got too much going on in your head and loads of things around you you're not really confident about, you're just not going to fish well. So ground bait for me at this time of the year, I just use one ground bait. Skimmer's Dark is such a brilliant ground bait. The reason being is I can sort of basically do anything I want with it, and I know just everything likes eating it. A big thing for me is the softness. So when you actually mix it up, it just tends to be, well, it just is really, really soft. Again, it's got a nice smell to it, but it's just something that I know I'm not going to feed it and think, was that a bit strong? Like, am I feeding something a little bit strong at the moment? So I don't think pole mix would be too strong, but then maybe in my head I'd be thinking, is the colour quite right? Again, with Skimmer's Dark, it's not too strong, but it's not overly dark. It's like this really sort of nice, dark, sort of greeny colour. It's not overpowering. You know, I'm not going to feed it and have question marks in my mind. Again, the reason why I like that ground bait is where whatever I'm doing, I can just mix it up in different ways. So the biggest way, I'll be honest, I'm a fan of at this time of the year, where I just want to feed a tiny little bit, is trying to mix it so you end up with almost, if you imagine slop that you was going to throw in, or if you never fish slop shallow, if you can imagine mixing the softest paste that you could possibly mix, where you've got to like mold it around a hook, that's the sort of texture you want it. And the best way I found it is a pint of water, and then just under a pint of ground bait. But you could do a pint of water, pint of ground bait, put your water in your bait box first, then your pint of ground bait, stir it around with your fingers, and it'd be soup to start with, and eventually it start thickening up. And then just have another little tub of water with you and just add a little bit to it, just to get it to that right sloppy consistency. And then put it down when you feel like, you know what, that's at that consistency. And then leave it a couple of minutes, go back to it, and you'll notice it's stiffened up. You don't want to let it go all the way stiff, because then, well, you can do it and put some water on it, but then you just got to, takes a little bit more time to get it all that same consistency. So just by adding a little bit and stirring it, you end up with just that lovely sloppy consistency. I just think it's lovely, you know, because when you just put a bit in your pot, if you want to make a bit of a cloud, say you was fishing in 2.5, 3.5 foot across on a canalised lake, and you're feeding, you're not getting a bite. What I could do is just ship out, tap it from like a metre off the water. So just, you know, tap my pole, it's going to plop out, it's just going to open up. Most of it, you know, you just end up with that nice little cloud going down. It's a great way of dragging the fish in your peg. When the fish are in your peg, then you can either tap it right next to the water if you feel like ground bait's important, but when they're there, hopefully then I can change my pot to just start shaking a few maggots in, just getting them eating particles, and hopefully that's the way to be able to do it. What I found on our last our last match that we fished at Tunnel, that I filmed for us in our match report section, I fed ground bait and I missed a bite, and then I fed a bit more ground bait never had a bite. So I thought, right, I'm just going to start tapping a few maggots in. Tapped a few maggots in, and I foul hooked one. It just didn't feel right. So I went back to my little small guru pot with the lid off, put like 4 or 5 maggots in it, smeared a bit of ground bait, bang that in. That seemed to be the best way of being able to catch them. So for tunnel, that's how I like feeding it, just in like a tiny little small pot. Now, if I was going to say Gold Valley, which would be a great example, and try and use venues that I've been to, but also that are a bit different there, because it's an open water venue and it's not overly deep, but it tends to be, and I'll explain this a little bit regarding Barston. So it's not overly deep, but I'm going to say it's like 5 to probably 7 foot is the deepest part. But the fish are in the middle. So you feed your ground bait, and even if I went out and fed there's probably 1 or 2 pegs, without going into too much detail, where the F1s are, where you could go out and feed like we would at tunnel, tap a little bit of ground bait and flick a few maggots in and just catch F1s. But on the other pegs where you're fishing for skimmers and carp, they're in the middle of the lake. You're never going to go out, tap a bit of bait in, wait, and within 20 minutes, half hour, you're all of a sudden going to start to catch. So there, you need to feed bait to be able to get them to come in your peg, but you need to feed a volume of bait. But you don't fish on your bait. You always fish past it. So you'd feed, maybe say 600 mil of just neat ground bait at the start. No micros, no maggots, just 600 mil of ground bait. Feed that, spread it out, feed it loose. So again, with that ground bait, just mix it up so that it's on the damp side. So it's just that nice damp consistency, to the point where almost I feel like, well, if I add a bit more water now, it's going to start stodging up a little bit. It's damp, but it's loose, individual bits. It's hard to explain because I don't do it via a measurement, but just like nice and damp to the touch, but it's still loose. Then I just scoop it in my pot, touch it, ship out, and just basically turn my pot over. Just let it come out in a nice cloud, create a nice big area of like mini little particles on the bottom. But there you'd feed your bait, and then you just start loose feeding maggots over it. Not loads, just loose feeding a few maggots. And how I would normally feed is I'd feed my maggots way past my ground bait to start with, and I'd feed them on a waggler line, so probably 18, anywhere between 16 and 20 meters. Again, quality of bait's massive, nice big maggots to be able to, group them and they'll land nicely, but also you get that little bit of extra distance. But I start off on a bomb or a method, trying to catch some carp early or F1s, and then I just loose feed a few maggots. After about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, then, depending on what area I was in, then I chuck a waggler out. If I started getting some bites on a waggler, then I just start flicking a few maggots, again, in and around my ground bait on my pole line. And then it's working out what line is going to be best. If you're looking around, if you think it's going to be quite difficult, I just flick a few maggots just past my pole line, but I'm more than just going to be feeding a waggler. What's interesting though is if I never feed that ground bait on the pole, probably wouldn't catch that many fish on a waggler. There you have to have the ground bait in your peg, and they just basically just sit past it. So it's how close do they come, more the skimmers. Then if you get some F1s and carp, you'll tend to catch them just off the back of your feed or on your bait. That's just what worked there. But then you go to, say, Barston, which the stocking is totally different, a lot smaller skimmers, whereas at Gold, when you get a bite, it's a pound, if not probably £2. If it goes under and you strike, more often than not, it's going to be £2 to whatever it could be. A couple of years ago, again, fishing that waggler, just like how I said, it's gone under, whack, and it stayed there and just started moving. And eventually, after a long fight, I netted a common 27.12 it was. Honestly, if I'd have lost it, I'd have said it was £400. It was massive how big it was. But that's what I mean by that type of venue. When it goes under and you connect, it's £2 plus. So you're not fishing for millions of bites to be able to catch a big wave. Whereas you go to Barston, it's totally different again. It's shallower. Yeah, the venue size is actually even bigger than Gold, but it's a lot shallower. It's got more colour. But the biggest thing as well is the size of the fish are different. They're a lot smaller. So there, I'd never feed a big volume of bait at the start because them little skimmers are a nightmare because they just love eating ground bait and they can be really difficult to be able to catch. But because there's so many more mouths to be able to feed, You don't have to wait long for the fish to arrive on your pole line. Again, if you went to Woodlands Thirst, that's another one. Still mega carp lakes, but you don't, because it's shallow and not as big, not as deep, don't tend to have to wait as long for the fish to arrive, because they're a much smaller stamp and there's more little tiny fish, I would say. So there, I would probably feed maybe like one little wet ball of ground bait at the start, maybe a little bit of loose and a few live maggots. I'd feed that, but I'm still going to want to start for a carp, unless it was a silverfish only match. I'll start for a carp, see if I could get a bite or two. If not, then I go on the pole, and what I might do is then change it, where I just start loose feeding sort of 3 or 4 8mm pellets, just wherever they land, and that gives me an option of maybe catching a carp late on a rod, on a line for a rod. Again, if it was going to be rock hard, do the same thing, feed a bit of ground bait, but also loose feed some maggots for a waggler. But it all depends on the venue you're going as to how much bait you're going to feed. Also, the consistency of how you're going to feed it. The only time I wouldn't use that ground bait at this time of the year, if I was fishing like a little method feeder. And personally, if I'm fishing a method feeder for carp, I think in the wintertime, micros are just so much better than ground bait, so I wouldn't want to use ground bait. But if I wanted to fish a little method feeder for skimmers, then what I'd probably do is mix a bit of coarse carp or a bit of fine carp with some skimmers dark, just so I've got that binding texture, enough to be able to hold it around my little method feeder. But that's how I look to use my ground bait, Richard, like during the warmer months. So we've got one here from Julian, afternoon Paul. Afternoon, Julian, hope you're keeping well. And then our next one is from Andrew. I sent you a picture of me reading Match Fishing magazine with you on the cover, me and Lanzarote, with 5 sons. So that's brilliant, Andrew. We need that sun over here. I wish we could have borrowed it and brought it over. And then we've got our last question from Richard. And then again, I'll love you and leave you and let you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. This one's from Richard. Also, could you give me some tips on fishing through the ice? I seem to have the habit of catching early but struggling second half of the match, even though I'm feeding relatively negatively. So I'll be honest, Richard, one of the biggest things that I feel like I learned from this match, when we was on peg 1 on new, is I feel like I cut the wrong channel. So looking back, I said it on our match report, I wish I'd have cut a line to the island, a line out in front of me, and then a line towards the pot, because those are the options. And what's difficult, exactly what you're just saying here, about that you catch an odd fish, but you struggle in the second half of the match. The problem is with it is you've only got what you've cut out. And at times, depending on how thick the ice is, you're too frightened of cutting too much in case it all melts and it's all going to go away. It's really, really difficult, because if it was a normal match and you've caught an odd fish and you think, do you know what, I feel like I need to push out, or I need to maybe set up another line for long down this way, or I need to spend a little bit more time, say the island was quite good, like 3 foot, 2.5 foot, whatever it be. You tap some bait and you catch an odd fish and it's like, right, it's gone. I feel like I need to be going, I replumb up that way because I feel like there's more fish that way, or I need to replumb up that way because we ain't got these options. And that's what's really difficult when you're fishing through the ice, is you can't go towards the fish. You've only got what you've got. So you tap a bit of bait in. If you don't get a bite, let's just say you don't get a bite dob and you've got nothing to dob to. So we've got to feed. There's no bites on bread. We've got to feed something to be able to attract the fish there. Feed some bait, and once you've caught, and then all you can do is tap some bait in and hope you get a bite. You can't do anything. Once you've got your channels, you've got what you've got. There's no, you can't replumb up and start again, which is something that, I know Rich goes to tunnel a bit. We've got those options and exactly what I mean, that it's like, do you know what, I've caught a few here. And looking around, I feel like this is what's happening. So I'm going to restart now doing this. And then you start catching, because that's the right thing to do on the day. That's the downside when you're fishing in the ice. But all I would feel like, from what I've learned from, because again, I haven't done loads of it, but is making sure that you think about when you're cutting your peg out, that you're giving yourself the options. And it is difficult at times because it's hard to get through the ice. So you ain't got the time or the tools. You know, like if we drew, a perfect example would be 25 on new. You draw that roadside. If it's that thick, you ain't breaking all the way across. You just can't do it. Well, maybe if you had some help, we'd be able to do it. But there, it's like 16 meters. It's going to be difficult to be able to break the ice if it gets to the point where it's too thick to be able to do it. That's where it's difficult. So I feel like the biggest thing is really think, what different depths do I want? And again, because you know tunnel quite well, you'll know that roughly about there is where you normally catch. I want to cut my peg out there because it gives me this depth option. But all you can really do is tap a little bit of bait. If you don't get a bite, then move. And I think looking back at my match, what I know I'm guilty of, probably too much of the time, is I catch one and then tap some bait in, catch one, and I want to clatter them. That's how all my fishing has always been. What's the best way? And then just extract as many as I can. What I need to do, and again, through the ice, I think what you need to be able to do. But again, this is where it's having options. If you've just got our channel, you've got there, down the track, you know, I did catch a few short, but I think that's only because it's one on new, because you've got the cover, you're on that point. But a normal peg, I remember, again, a match I drew 7 on extension after, it was a Sunday match, and it was after John broke it. John Arthur broke the peg, and he'd done a lovely job. And I just had to chip away to get to the island, caught a few there, and I had a mint day. And I caught a few like at the bottom of the slope, and I had a lovely day. And from there to my short line, which was top 6, probably only another 2.5 sections, maybe 5 meters. It might be, maybe it might be 6 meters. But I can go to the bottom of the shelf again in the deep water, away from myself, and get bites all of the time. I drop short in similar depth, I don't get a bite. So a lot of the time, we haven't really got options. You know, you've only sort of got 1 or 2 spots where you can fish. So if you can cut yourself out, maybe a channel, so you've got a sort of a separate track line, and then you can tap a bit of bait in, catch one. If you feel like I need to rest, but then as you're shipping out, tap a bit of bait in your hole that you're not fishing in, go back to the one you are, and then it might be a case of, rather than just sitting there, even if you feel like I need to come off of this, then go over, maybe tap a few more maggots in where you was fishing, go down your track line, just tap a bit of bait, and even sit there for 10 minutes. Even if you feel like I'm not going to get a bite, it's maybe just trying to leave your other line alone. But I honestly think that's the biggest thing. In a normal match, we work out during the match what we feel like's the right depth, what we feel like the right bait is. And once you've almost used the line to figure everything out, if it's going a bit funny, you can just sort of replumb up and start again, and you get a little run. That's the struggle when it's frozen over, is you just haven't got that opportunity. So it's just a case of just tapping a little bit of bait in on like 2 or 3 lines and just keep rotating, because we haven't got any other options to do apart from that. So that's what I would say. I don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. I just feel like we're just so limited with, you know, with the amount of options that you've got. But yeah, that's our say. I just thought it'd be nice to come on and have a little bit of a chat whilst we're all sort of stuck inside a little bit, and probably need to start doing a bit more regularly. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Hope you have a lovely rest of the weekend. Never know, the weather's looking really nice here, so you might be able to get out tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to go out tomorrow. I'm probably going to start from next week, just have a weekend, doing my prep, and yeah, look forward to getting back out on the bank soon. But so I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I will see you all very soon. Cheers.